Picture this for a second. You're walking through a quiet trail, minding your own business, and a fox walks straight toward you, not running away, not hiding, walking toward you, carrying her own baby in her mouth, and she sets it down, at your feet, like she's asking you to do something about it. This isn't a movie. This actually happens. And when you really sit with that for a second, it's one of the strangest things in the entire animal kingdom, because nothing in nature should work this way. Today, we're going to look at real cases of wild animals trusting humans, sometimes with their lives, sometimes with their children. And by the end, you're going to understand something about trust itself that you probably never thought about before. Let's start with the obvious question. Why would a wild animal, whose entire existence depends on staying away from us, ever choose to walk toward us instead? For most of history, humans have been the scariest thing in the forest. We hunt, we build, we take up space that used to belong to someone else. So evolutionarily speaking, every wild animal should treat us the way we treat a spider in the bathtub, with maximum suspicion and a fast exit plan. And yet, there's a well-documented case from 1996 at a zoo in Illinois. A toddler fell into a gorilla enclosure. People panicked, screaming, bracing for the worst. And a gorilla named Binti Jua walked over, picked the unconscious child up, and gently carried him to the door where the paramedics were waiting. She wasn't trained to do that. Nobody taught her. She just did it. Let that sink in for a second. A completely wild instinct, deciding on its own that a human in danger was worth protecting. Now here's where it gets even stranger, because this isn't just a nice animal story. There's real biology behind it. Inside your brain, and inside the brains of dogs, elephants, even rats, there's something called the oxytocin system. Scientists sometimes call it the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical that floods a parent's brain when they hold their newborn for the first time. And researchers have found that this exact same hormone spikes in animals when they form a bond. Not just with their own species, but sometimes with us too. So when your dog stares into your eyes a little too long, that's not just a cute moment for the camera. That's the same hormonal loop a mother gets from her baby. Somewhere along the way, evolution accidentally built a bridge between species, and nobody designed it on purpose. And it gets weirder still. There's another famous case, completely unrelated, in California. A man named Kevin Hines jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. He survived the fall, which is incredibly rare on its own, but he was struggling to stay afloat in freezing water. He felt something pushing against him from below. He thought it might end badly. It was a sea lion, and it kept him afloat until help arrived. Nobody trained that sea lion to do CPR by nudging. There's no marine biology class for save the drowning guy. Something in that animal's brain made a decision in the moment, the same way Binti Jua did, the same way your dog does when it rests its head on your leg the one night you're actually sad and didn't tell anyone. So here's the question worth asking. Is this empathy? Real empathy, the kind we usually think only humans are capable of. Scientists studying this have found something called mirror neurons, brain cells that fire both when an animal does something and when it simply watches someone else go through it. It's the same system that makes you wince when you see someone stub their toe, and it's not just in humans. It shows up across many species, which means some animals might genuinely feel an echo of what we're feeling, not just react to us. This is where the story usually goes one of two ways online. Either people roll their eyes and say it's all instinct, nothing emotional about it at all, or people go too far the other way and start saying every animal secretly loves us like a Disney movie. The real answer, like most real answers, is sitting in the uncomfortable middle. These animals aren't choosing us out of charity. They're not weighing the moral implications of helping a human, but the chemistry underneath their choice. The same oxytocin, the same mirroring circuits we have, that part is real and it's measurable. And it's been replicated in labs. So back to that fox, the one walking toward a stranger with her own baby in her mouth. Here's what's actually happening. In plain terms, she's not asking for help the way a human would ask a doctor for help. She doesn't understand hospitals or veterinarians. What she's doing is something deeper and honestly more desperate. Every instinct in her body says humans are dangerous, but another instinct, the one wired by millions of years of caring for her young, is screaming louder. And in that one moment, the second instinct wins. That's not a cute internet video. That's a wild animal overriding its own survival programming because something mattered more in that exact second. And maybe that's the part that should actually stick with you. We like to think of trust as a uniquely human thing, something we build slowly with conversation and time and shared experience. But here's a fox who has zero language, zero shared history with you, choosing in a split second to hand over the most important thing in her world to a stranger. If you really think about it, that's not weaker than human trust. In some ways, it's more honest. There's no negotiation, no social pressure, no reputation to maintain. Just one creature deciding in the moment that this particular human is safe enough to risk everything on. So the next time your dog leans into you for no reason, or you hear about some wild animal doing something that makes absolutely no evolutionary sense on paper, remember there's a real, measurable scientific reason underneath that moment. It's not magic. It's a hormone, a neural circuit, and millions of years of biology quietly deciding that some bonds are worth more than fear. And somewhere out there right now, an animal is probably making that exact same decision about someone without either of them fully understanding why. But here's something that makes this whole story even stranger. It's not just mammals doing this, it's not just the animals we already think of as smart or emotional. There's a documented case of a wild dolphin in Australia that, over several years, kept nudging swimmers away from a specific stretch of water, right before sharks were spotted in that exact area. Marine biologists couldn't explain it with simple instinct alone because the dolphin gained nothing from warning a human. No food, no safety benefit for itself. It just did it. Repeatedly. With different swimmers. Like it had decided on some level that these particular humans were worth the effort. And then there's the case that still puzzles researchers studying elephant behavior in parts of Africa. Elephants have been observed standing guard near sleeping humans in the wild, specifically when predators were nearby. Not their own herd, not their own young. A human who, biologically speaking, an elephant has zero reason to protect. Now here's the part that really should make you pause. Scientists studying these patterns have found that the brain regions responsible for social bonding, the same oxytocin pathways we talked about earlier, are remarkably similar across species that evolved completely independently of each other. A dolphin's brain and a human's brain look nothing alike on the outside, but the chemistry underneath, the actual hardware for forming a bond, is almost eerily consistent. So scientists have started asking a bigger question. What if trust isn't something humans invented and animals copy from us? What if it's the other way around? What if trust is one of the oldest tools evolution ever built, long before humans showed up to take credit for it? And honestly, that flips the whole story on its head. We like to think we're the species that taught the world about kindness, about looking out for each other. But the more researchers study this, the more it looks like we just happen to inherit something that was already running in the background of life on Earth, long before we had a name for it. There's an uncomfortable mirror to all of this too, because if animals are capable of overriding fear to protect a stranger, the question becomes, how often do we do the opposite? How many times has a human walked past an animal clearly signaling distress and just kept scrolling on their phone? The fox trusts us more in that one moment than most of us trust anything in our entire lives. Maybe that's the real twist in this story. Not that wild animals occasionally act human, but that every once in a while they act more compassionately than we do, without a brain built for guilt, without a moral lecture, without anyone watching to give them credit for it. So, the next time you hear a story about some animal doing something that shouldn't make sense, remember, it's not breaking the rules of nature. It might be one of the oldest rules of nature, quietly resurfacing in a world that mostly forgot it was there. There's one more thing worth knowing before you go looking for your own fox walks up to me moment. Most wildlife experts will tell you the same thing, again and again. An animal approaching you closely isn't always a sign of trust. Sometimes it's a sign that something is badly wrong. Illness, injury, desperation. The fox in our story wasn't relaxed. She was almost certainly terrified. And chose us anyway, because she was out of better options. That distinction matters, because it changes what these moments actually mean. This isn't a story about animals deciding humans are friendly and safe. It's a story about a split-second calculation made under extreme pressure, where the risk of trusting a stranger somehow became smaller than the risk of doing nothing at all, which, if you think about it, isn't that far from some of the hardest decisions humans make either. Asking for help when you're scared, trusting someone you don't fully know because the alternative is worse. Maybe that's why these stories hit us the way they do. They're not really about the animals at all. They're a strange, accidental mirror, showing us our own instincts, reflected back at us from a species that was never supposed to understand us in the first place. And if a wild fox can make that call in a split second, with no language, no plan, and everything to lose, it might be worth asking what's stopping the rest of us.